How close can we get?
Elbow bump. You're perfect. You got tested, right?
I did.
And with a COVID-19 elbow bump, the interview with the vice president was on, but not before the White House medical unit had given me a rapid test for the virus. It came back negative, but the more pressing issue, will America hear some positive news soon about getting back to normal?
How confident are you that after April 30th, we may see some difference here in the economy and getting back to normal?
David, we're seeing real progress. We're going to be following the data very carefully, but if as some of the experts suggest, if we are nearing the peak of the coronavirus and if Americans continue to do what they've been doing now for weeks across the country, we believe we'll be in a very different place come the end of April, and we'll be able to bring forward recommendations.
It's clear the federal government lagged on testing early, mainly due to a bureaucratic process full of red tape. Pence says the model is now changing because the administration is getting the private sector more heavily involved.
We've developed all new testing format. Abbott Laboratories has a 15-minute test. I think you just took it, that we're working to make available all across the country, and but the reality was there were always many test kits out there, but the ability to process them rapidly was what the president addressed when we brought the full power of the private sector together. We're going to continue to scale and increase the amount of testing during this epidemic, but also create a foundation for a new modern rapid testing system for coronavirus and other diseases for years to come.
While the testing is getting better, people of faith still must follow guidelines, which means no in-person church services. Most have obeyed, and doors remain closed.
Our churches and synagogues and communities of faith across America have risen to the challenge.
But a handful of churches are still worshiping in person, a fact that Pence addresses biblically.
What's your message to those that are still holding services in the pews?
I would just remind as a brother in Christ that, you know, where two or more are gathered, there he is also. We're all making do, but we can still worship, we can still practice our faith, and practice the really important social distancing that at this time in the life of our nation is just so important.
Also important, he says, giving to places of worship during this critical time.
Even if you're not in the pew on Sunday, that ministry is still going on. And so to the extent that you're able to continue to contribute to your local church, your local synagogue, your ministry, we encourage you to do that because those communities of faith are making such an immense difference.
Congress is trying to make a difference too by spending lots of money. So far, Pence likes what he sees.
It really has been a testament of Congress working at its best. But for small businesses around the country, we've literally enrolled thousands upon thousands of companies in the Paycheck Protection Program, which will allow small businesses to keep people on the payroll for 2 months.
Still, the squabbling continues.
Look, there'll be issues that will be debated in the days ahead.
Especially on nationwide mail-in balloting, something Democrats are pushing to get funded. Republicans say it's political.
Do you think the mail-in balloting, in terms of the funding that Democrats want, do you believe that is political in nature?
Well, I'd leave that to others, and that'll be an important debate in the days ahead. Our objective right now is to put the coronavirus in the past.
And as leader of the coronavirus task force, he believes there will indeed be light at the end of this very dark and tumultuous tunnel. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Well, these are dark times. These are just, unusual. I've never experienced anything like this in my lifetime. And we look at what will be the effect going forward. I'm hopeful that we can return to life that would be somewhat normal. But I know already that some things in our culture are forever changed. I think the handshake is gone. And the handshake will be considered rude. That if you offer a hand, people are going to go, what are you doing?
The first time you said that, I thought, he's going over the top here. But now I'm kind of with you there.
Well, yeah. Would you get on an airplane?
Well, I would, because, I mean, how else are you going to get to some of the places we go?
Because you have to.
Because I have to, but yeah.
But would you feel comfortable sitting next to someone in economy class? Or you know, forget it. I mean, even, you know, business class, it's like you're right on top of each other.
You know, I probably would take a mask with me just in case I felt like I needed to use it. But I mean, we've all talked about that for a long time, even before Corona, that, you know, you're breathing recycled air with people who may be ill.
Maybe affected.
Yeah.
Would you want the airline to do a rapid test for everybody that's going to be put on that plane?
Sure.
And maybe everybody
Sure.
going into the airport from the get-go.
Well, yeah.
So that you're not in a confined space. You know, I mean, the number of areas in an airport setting that are actually even tighter than what you're going to experience on a plane.
Just the line to get on board, you know, I mean, you can't keep...
Baggage claim, all of it. It's,
Yeah,
you know, these are a high concentrated
Bathrooms
environments.
in an airport?
But let's
Yeah.
talk about, you know, would you go to a sporting contest and sit in the bleachers? And the answer is probably not, because those
Well,
are
unless
high
Green
contact.
Bay was playing, then I'd probably make an exception, but just saying.
But it's got to be a very cold winter day.
Kills those
in
germs just like that.
Lambert. Retirement homes.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, we've seen
We've already
that.
seen what
That's
that means.
Yeah.
And would you say, yeah, sign me up, I need assisted living?
Well, the bigger question for me would be if I had a parent still living that was in a retirement home. That would be very difficult to not go
Cruise ships.
be with them. I don't go on cruise ships anyway. Absolutely not. That's an epidemic looking for a place to happen.
You start spinning out these things, and the number of things we spin out, you know, I'll add to it Sunday morning church altar calls.
Yeah.
Where is that going to be, and how do you now accommodate a crowd and do that in a safe and distant environment where you maintain 6 feet?
But maybe we don't need to have it be that safe and that separated once things settle down. I know that's probably going to be...
You're going to be aware of everybody until you can
Yeah.
say there's a mass instant test, and if someone tests positive, then there's going to be an enforced quarantine on all contact. So how do you find those contacts? How do you enforce that quarantine?
Well, and part of it is that this seems to have morphed into a couple of, you know, additional strains of this. So now, what if? I mean, does it ever end? Does it ever? Just that's your side of the table. Just stay right over there, young man.